Let's welcome the President and Co-Managing Partner of Brain+Trust Partners, Mr. Tim Hayden.
Thank you. All right. Loved following my other brother Tim there because I'm a huge fan, and you're going to see me talk a little bit about user-generated content, leveraging what's being created out there. At Brain+Trust Partners, we work with Fortune 2000 brands, and really, I got to be honest, it's anybody with about 300 million or more in revenue, to tackle what's happening in the world today, which is extremely challenging to you as marketers and as business operators. And the critical business transformation trends that we see out there are these and many more. But what's facing us right now is that globalization, no matter what we think we can do to stop it, politically or otherwise here in the United States, is a real thing. Customers are speaking different languages and they're accessing your website, they want your products from all around the world. The thing that I'm going to talk about today more than anything else are the disparate systems that you use to manage the customer experience, because that's the biggest headache that every single company on the planet has right now. More about that in a bit. Technology is evolving right now at a rate that we have never seen in the history of humanity. And that is challenging to all of you in this room and every brand on the planet today. The other problems that happen there are with what's happening in your ability to analyze text. You use social listening platforms. You use search. And there are nuances with slang. I used to work at Edelman, and we used to notice how people on the north side of Chicago would say things that people on the south side of the Chicago could not understand in social media. It is that disparate in terms of how people communicate, and there's an issue in the way that we use machines to analyze that. There is a convergence that's happening between comms and marketing and customer care right now, because if any of you are in organizations that have those three different business units operating separately, most of them are using the same data. They're paying twice and three times for the same data, and they're talking to the same customer, which also goes back to the disparate system problem. I'm going to talk about that today. The thing that I think most people don't understand is that there are 11 bot nodes around the world. They are in Eastern Europe, China, Korea, Japan, and in South America. And you can tweet about the royal family using royal family as a hashtag, and there will be thousands of bots that come after you in terms of retweeting you if that's something they want to retweet, or attacking you with automated text that happens. And that's just what's automated. You probably already know the stats that 40-some-odd% of every day's tweets come from machines, not people. And you want to talk about reviews on Amazon, Google, Yelp. Machines are there. It's a problem. It is a challenge. And then the last part of this is just the changing organizational structures. How do we morph to handle all of this? So to get more defined on this and understand what's facing you as challenges, before I talk about how to solve it, let's talk about what the current situation is. Right now, 16% of Americans 18 plus own a smart speaker in their home. How many of you own a Google Home or Amazon Echo Dot in your house? Raise them high. At least half of you do. 16% of us do right now. And that 16% is largely divided between two companies, Amazon and Google. If that doesn't scare you just a little bit, that two companies right now have got upwards of 20% of the U.S. population that they're hearing everything happen in their house. Okay. From the same study between Edison Research and NPR, they asked them a number of other questions. Would you want a voice assistant to be with you in these other places? And it's a resounding yes. We as humans would rather be using our voice to talk and to communicate than we would text. And this is something that those aforementioned companies have got a head start on everybody else in being able to capitalize on that market. brands are being afforded the opportunity to get in that space, sometimes to play along and buy their opportunities to be in existing mediums such as Google or Amazon, but now is the time for brands to start to think about how they can independently build a direct communication or a direct channel between them and their customers. The other things that are happening, you probably saw the news this week that it has come out that Facebook had deals with Samsung and who else? Apple? And who else? I mean, the list went on and on. Facebook has done much more troubling things with our personal data than just having one fangled digital marketing agency. And let's be honest, all of us know at least 100 other digital marketing agencies that have committed greater sins than Cambridge Analytica. I mean, we just know that's the case. Times are changing. I'm not throwing Facebook under the bus, but times are changing with our favorite inordinate amount of time per day place to spend our attention. The other side of that is what happened 2 weeks ago now with GDPR going into effect. It took 3 hours for attorneys in the European Union to file suit against Google and Facebook for violating GDPR. And I can look everybody in the room right now, and you can probably say, but my customers are American and I operate in America. The advertising networks that you use are global. You have to be compliant. This is just like the cars that you drive here in the state of Texas that have passed California emissions tests. It's the same kind of thing, what's happening with media today. Many of you probably have seen the Lumascapes. This is Scott Brinker. He puts this out every year, and he calls it the Martech 5000. Why? Because last year, the number actually went to 5,000. 6 years ago, there were 500 logos on this Lumascape. He still calls it the Martech 5000, although there are 6,802 logos before you right now. We as marketers have glommed on, I think is the word I'm looking for, to anything and everything that puts us closer to chasing the customer. And yet I'll remind everybody that for the better part of half a decade now, more than half of your customers have been carrying around an always-on HD or 4K production studio supercomputer in their pocket everywhere they go. They are nodes on a network, peer-to-peer. You've had the opportunity to reach them directly without going through these multiple channels, without seeing 20% plus of your marketing spend go to Facebook and Google. They've been right there at the end of a line. Any anglers in the room? Anybody likes to fish? Come on, we're in Houston. It's gotta be. I drove in from Austin this morning. I drive to Houston usually to go fishing, so that's the reason I asked that question. All right. The gist here is that we've had this one-to-one connection with each other, and that one-to-one connection, one-to-one meaning that any of us in the room have got access to all the information in the world, as well as a brand has every opportunity to reach out peer-to-peer to customers. What does this really roll out to? The world looks like this. Now, don't raise your hand if you don't know who these guys are, but play along with me if you do. Cliff Clavin, if you remember from the hit show Cheers, knew a little bit about everything. People in the bar would be talking about something and he would butt in and tell everybody what he knew. He was a mile wide and 6 inches deep with everything that he had information on or some opinion on. That is what everybody in this room is today. We don't have barroom arguments anymore because we have IMD, Google, and Wikipedia in our pocket. We can prove or disprove any argument on the spot today. You can't even play trivia in bars anymore because people cheat and they have their phones out, right? So that's a real example. The epitome of personalization is the gentleman on your right, because when he walks in the bar, Norm. Everybody knows his name. The theme song for the show was a place where everybody knows your name. But when Norm came in, We knew that he wasn't happy about work, he wasn't happy about his wife, but we knew where he sat and we put a beer in front of him because we knew what he was drinking every single time. That's personalization, and that's what most marketers today are aspiring to do. Yet, we still send emails out that say, "Hello, customer. Hi there, member. Hello, friend." And we've got that big diorama of different tools that has enabled us to leverage all the big data to know who these people are and to be very personalized. We're still doing this. So the way to look at this problem is what's really happening here. Let's say you have a customer named Cliff. He's filled out a form on your website and he's let you know that his name is Cliff. On Twitter, he's the Cliffster. His credit card has his name as Cliff B. Smith. In search, Google is telling you that's Clifford visiting your website. In your CRM, there is a registration for someone named Clifford. And when he downloaded your mobile app and gave you his name and registered for that mobile app, his name is Cliff. You see what the problem is here. We have clients that have customer care who is looking at people complaining about long wait times in cold burgers on Twitter, but are spending upwards of $50 a month using a mobile app, and they don't know that that's the same person who has got a high lifetime value that they can now quantify from the mobile activity, but is also just a pain in the ass on Twitter, which is all Twitter really does is make assholes bigger assholes, right? But this is just Cliff. And that's what he needs to be, what he has to be. And he has to be just Cliff today because of what happened 2 weeks ago. Cliff can be a citizen of the United Kingdom, and he can send a message to your company and say, "I want to commit suicide," digital suicide. That's what the Norwegians call it. "I want you to erase every single record you have of me. You're required as a marketer by law, using the advertising networks and the email systems that you use. You are required by law to be able to do it in a fell swoop. Get rid of Cliff." But the other side of this is that you can finally get personalized in everything you want to do with Cliff. So the impact of the situation that I just explained is quite simple. 3 things. Fewer repeat purchases. We've turned marketing into an acquisition game when marketing dollars should go to retention purposes. How do we get our current customers who've already trusted us and opened our wallets to do so again and again and again? But no, we've been chasing them across all of these platforms, all of these networks, and we call them different things. We know them as different people when they're actually the same person, and we cannot replicate what they've done with us once or twice. Our most valuable customers are also early adopters, so now they are susceptible to the brand that serves them best with the least amount of friction. Pardon me. Which is what we hear about every day, Amazon being the poster for what's happening to the world because they figured out this very frictionless, direct way to put stuff on your front doorstep or now in the trunk of your car, wherever you are at any time. And then all of this boils down to lost revenue. So if we're going to solve this digital dilemma, there are a few steps, and this is where I'll get into the pathways, the paths to success. The first thing is you're going to start with the digital customer, and all of you in the room, I would imagine, because you're at this conference, are at the helm of digital media in some fashion. It is the first place that you're going to start to be able to understand your customers, what they want and what they need, and what you as an organization must do. You're going to create a seamless experience across all of these touch points that's more aligned and more personal. And then, you can finally to do that, you can finally start to think about and acknowledge that's what you need to do. You can start to see that you've got certain steps to success. The first thing that everyone in the room has to do is understand that if you've been operating with social media as a main way to reach your customers, and you've looked at third-party advertising networks as a way to retarget folks, May 25th was your deadline. We're past that now. You can't operate in any of those mediums or any of those channels the way you did before May 25th today. You just cannot do that. So you need to be able to go and find all the places where you were engaged in that activity of retargeting, of building custom audiences, of somehow pinpointing who you wanted to put an ad in front of at any point, and simply do what you can to get them to click through to a landing page where you ask for information like this on the right. An email address, a mailing address, a phone number, and their name. It is the first step that for over a month now, and I say that over 6 months now, we've been advising clients, take your marketing budget and don't go for a click-through to purchase. Just go through and have them answer a couple of questions and fill out a form to give you all the information on them that you don't have already, because you're not going to reach them any longer after May 25th. The Cambridge Analytica thing happened, and that kind of accelerated all of this. Those of you who have platforms or use platforms that leverage Facebook APIs probably realize that sometime around April 15th of this year that you got a note from Sprinkler or Spreadfast or Sprout or whoever you're using and said, we're sorry, you're not going to be able to do some of the things that you could have done last week. That was not GDPR related. That's just simply customer privacy, what's happening there. So understanding what matters most is getting the information that to most marketers was gold 10 years ago. You're going to have that information again. The thing I'm going to walk you through right now is how to connect all of those relevant data sources. And I say those relevant data sources, the average Fortune 2000 brand right now is using anywhere from 50 to 80 different point solutions to manage the customer experience. And I can't remember who that was up here earlier today that was talking, but said it was the South African. And I'm sorry, I forgot his name. Remember his accent. Doug. So when Doug says they sat down and they looked at all the platforms they used, and there were platforms that nobody knew what they were for, right? But there was customer data wrapped up in those things. How do we get all the customer data into one place? We're going to talk about a customer data platform. Then you're in a position to leverage machine learning to go about learning about those customers and what they need. And finally, once you understand what they need and what their preferences are, you are in a prime position to customize, personalize, and make contextually relevant the messaging, the design, the marketing that you're going to put out there in front of them. So for the better part, as a recovering mobile strategist, for the better part of the last 10 years, I've used a diagram like this with CRM in the middle to explain the urgency that was upon marketers if you want to on that most personal of devices, the smartphone. And you're lying if you say you don't take it to the bathroom with you, because you do. It goes everywhere with us. CRM was going to be the most important thing, more important than the mobile app that you were going to build, because the mobile app would have to be connected to the CRM. And again, to know who that person was, we got to understand what they were doing on email. We got to understand what they were doing on social. But connecting all of these disparate systems into one central place, a customer data platform. This is different than a data lake. This is not a DMP that I'm discussing or describing to you. What your CDP would have to be connected to is something on the digital asset management side that could be a hybrid of a DSP that allows you to buy media if you're going to be personalized in what you do from an advertising standpoint. But the key point I'm making here is getting all of the customer data in one single place with the CDP. What this does is it allows you to have a holistic picture of each customer. Remember Cliff. Not only do we know Cliff is only Cliff, but now we know everything about him and how he interacts with our brand. And you can start to segment your audience in some unreal ways once you have that type of view of your customers. You can start to understand things about them that you never knew before because none of your point solutions by themselves told you. A couple of the things, or not more than a couple, the things that happen once you're able to bring all this data into one single place. You're going to lower your marketing spend. We have clients right now that have been able to shave as much as $22 million annually off their ad spend by using a CDP and understanding singularly who their customers are. You will have personalization happen. You'll have happier customers because you're not hitting them everywhere they go. And again, you won't be able to do that the way you had in the past because of the way retargeting has changed. GDPR compliance, which again, I used what the Norwegians call it with digital suicide, but it's the freedom to be forgotten. And California had an item on the ballot in yesterday's primary that could very well be the thing that makes GDPR-like regulations in the United States a reality in November. So watch that closely. It's going to happen here in the United States too. It may not be that referendum that's there in California, but it's going to happen pretty soon. You will be able to comply if you have all of those customer records in one place and creating a singular customer record. You will move closer to the marketing nirvana of personalization and contextual relevance. Again, the emails that you're sending that are A/B tested, right? You're using Marketo and you're sending out an A test and a B test to find out which of the two you're going to send out to all 300,000 people on your list, right? There are platforms on the market today that allow you, and one of them I won't mention by name, but a large grocer uses them. They have 250,000 people on their email list to get a recipe every Friday. And of those 250,000 people, 249,998 different email messages go out to that audience. They leverage the CDP, and then they leverage a marketing automation system that can handle those type of coordinates. The optimal segmentation and audience insights that you need for your business to understand what your customers want, not what Facebook tells you they want, not what someone else has told you from a third-party standpoint they want. Having your data in order will allow you to leverage artificial intelligence and machine learning. And this is why AI has not taken off yet. And I think there are people in the room who probably look at me and say, well, no, we use AI. We have a chatbot. We have AI baked into one of the systems that we use right now, and it gives us insights. That's true. AI can handle certain steps and certain processes and remove friction, make things run leaner. But for the larger opportunity here is having your data clean and all in one place. Artificial intelligence, or machine learning to be exact, can go in and give you insights, learn about your customers in ways that you could never dream of. Many options to do that. And as marketers, especially those of you who have been at the front or the helm of social media over the last decade, you've been on the front row of the pulse of the customer during that time, and by all means, having the data in one place and being able to understand the customer as well as anybody else, all of a sudden you have an opportunity to sit at the table with the engineers and product development teams that are coming out with the new flavor, the new version, the new model, whatever it is, because you know more about the customer than anybody else. The other side of this is future point solutions. If you want to get into augmented reality, virtual reality, a chatbot system, maybe you want to build a new mobile app, maybe you want to build something for game consoles, and have that be a connection. All of those things, as you move into the future, will benefit from you having your data in order today. And the last thing that this does for you as an organization, by instituting a customer data platform and having all that information in one place, is you can confirm the identities of your customers as you are forced through third parties, banks, and payment systems, if not launching something on your own, to use blockchain. Blockchain, if you think GDPR was about the freedom to be forgotten, blockchain is going to allow everybody in the room to operate anonymously with each other. So the near term, when I say knowing your customers before it's too late, if you have the opportunity to engage in blockchain where people will share their identity, having your data in order is going to help you verify who they are and that they are real. If you don't have that going on, it's going to just make it incredibly challenging for you to leverage a fascinating technology that can help you bring efficiencies to your organization. That's a whole different presentation. But being ready for the future is probably the biggest reason that we work with our clients today to incorporate all of their customer data into a singular place. Once you've done that, and this is right to where this is getting into Tim's world here, is understanding that peer-to-peer connection you have with your customers. In a post-purchase situation, ask your customers to take a photo or shoot a video of what they just bought for you. Put a call to action on the receipt, or put a call to action in the email, or put a call to action in the packing slip if you send it to them in a box. And ask them to take a picture of it or shoot a video of it, and then ask them a series of questions, along with asking for their email address. So you have that unique identifier that can come, and you can pack that in your CRM, and more on user-generated content in a second. But what you're able to effectively do in a peer-to-peer capacity is skip the one thing that you have to do, and I'm very impressed with Tint and what Tim put out there. You have to go through that extra step of getting people to allow you the rights to use their photos if you go with a hashtag approach. But if you already have that peer-to-peer connection with them, you had the transaction with them, just prescribe for them exactly what you want them to do and the information you want from them, and you have the opportunity to generate incredibly powerful content. I don't have to repeat anything Tim said, but incredibly powerful content and more information about those customers that then could go into your CRM, which is talking to your CDP. If you're planning to use a chatbot, the near-term opportunity with chatbots is to handle all the things that would happen from an FAQ standpoint, or what your top 20 Google searches seem to be, search strings seem to be. But understanding that the long term for artificial intelligence from a chatbot standpoint is to connect with the rest of the systems that you have, because the chatbot is going to increasingly become the voice of the brand, and must know that when Cliff comes to the website, or Cliff sends us a message through Facebook, that we know the last thing Cliff bought, and we know how long he's had it, we know how happy he was about it, and we know that he's connected to Fred and Susie, who live close to him. It's scary, creepy stuff, right? But this is where you'll have to ask anybody who's trying to sell you a chatbot today what their long-term plan is to integrate with other systems to allow AI to do what it can do, for the machine to learn. I mentioned artificial intelligence and machine learning, predictive analytics. Once you have all of your customer data in one singular place, you can start to leverage machine learning to build predictive models of what will happen based on instances of things that happened in the past. Purchase behavior, social media behavior, mobile app behavior, all of that, which is cataloged in one place now, in one customer record for each person you serve, the ability to segment that and build predictive models. We have customers right now that we're able to predict the future for the next 6 months for them with about 2% accuracy based on the 2 or 3 that have allowed us to do that. There's a combination of what we can do with the CDP, but there's also a combination of what we can get from Google Trends as well. Google Trends will let us go back 5 years and let us look at specific search strings and what people have searched for by the day, and we can start to understand what we need to do on June the 15th, 2018, based on what happened on June the 15th or that Wednesday of that week over the last 5 years. We're leveraging that with what's in the CDP itself. Back to user-generated content is something Tim hit on here, is taking all of that content that someone has given you, whether you've asked for permission, you found it, they were using a hashtag, or they tagged you in the photo and in the video or the video, they just mentioned you in a post, asking them for permission to reprint that, or going the direct peer-to-peer way that I was talking about, asking for the content and having them just check a box saying it's okay for you to use that photo or video, to be able to leverage that across everything that you're doing. And I'm predominantly talking about in a digital context here, but there was a great question asked here earlier about resolution on images. And if you go peer-to-peer, you can get around that because you can make whatever you're using from a curation standpoint when someone uploads a photo to get the original file from them, not which was made friendly to the social network. In short, what you will do if you've consolidated all of your customer data in one single place is you will know better than you ever have before on what customers want and what customers need, and even better than that, what were the triggers that caused them to buy in the past. To be able to do that in one single place without having to look at 5 different tools, 5 different platforms. It'll permit you to engage better, to be more contextually relevant, and ultimately, all of this will allow you to measure the performance of what you're doing from a marketing standpoint and a business standpoint. But wait, there's more. You as marketers have every right to sit down with current customers and to have conversations with them. And there are 3 kinds of customers in the world. There are your current customers, there are the customers that you used to have, and there are the aspirational prospective customers that you wish to acquire. And there is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be sitting down with these people and asking them what motivates them, why did they choose you, why did they not choose somebody else, what do they like about the product, and having conversations with them. It sounds very analog, and most of what I'm going to share with you over the next couple of slides is supremely analog, but I believe it's necessary right now because we've been inundated into measuring media performance with clicks and impressions and likes and follows and comments. We need to get back to where there is this interpersonal connection. Set up a customer advisory board. And with a customer advisory board, these can be your best customers or a mix of your most recently acquired customers and your best lifetime value customers to be a part of this exchange. And lastly, if you're a digital marketer, raise your hand. Keep your hand up if you run direct mail. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's impressive. Most digital marketing conferences, the hands all go down when I ask about direct mail. But for the other 32 of you in the room, bottom line is, if you're a digital marketer, go sit down with the person who runs direct mail. Direct mail marketers were more data-driven than anybody else for the longest time, and I would argue they're even more data-driven. Don't forget, Facebook got all its location data from one company, Pitney Bowes. And those that you run direct mail or have ever been in a mailroom know who Pitney Bowes is. So, digital marketers must sit down with the analog marketers and have conversations and talk about the observations that they've had in the performance of their wares and their media, but also to to share stories with each other on what's working, what has worked, what do they think can work. And by golly, once those kind of conversations start to happen on a regular basis, I would argue monthly at least, and this is anybody, if it's not direct mail, it's whoever handles customer care, customer service. Marketers need to sit down with those people as well because they're talking to real live customers every day. And they have things that they have observed that maybe don't go into the call logs that are shared with you, that they can share with you. But by gosh, once this starts to happen, you're in a fantastic opportunity to talk about true integrated marketing, to talk about not just approving what the URL is going to be on the direct mail piece, but getting into the strategy about when it goes out, what does it say, and how is this also going to affect what we're doing from a display standpoint, from an email standpoint, being truly integrated. Onward, transformation, the challenges that I outlined in that very first slide, this is not going to be easy for any of us right now. This is not going to be easy for any of us as we move into the future, and there are small startups, 2 guys in a coffee shop who are totally operating in a cloud selling the same thing we are and doing so with half the operating burdens that we have. But by leveraging having all of your data in the same place and becoming smarter about it, leveraging machine learning to uncover insights about your customers, you will have knowledge that you do not have today, and you will be supreme in the decisions that you make in the future. The chemistry that you have with other facets of your business, other business units, will improve because each of your data sets are all now living together in one place. And ultimately, it's going to give everybody greater focus. That's how to get a hold of me, and that's a book I wrote 4 years ago that, if you know how technology books go, it's severely outdated about 6 months after it was printed. But it's more about mobile behavior than mobile technology. I covered a lot of ground, but tried to stick to the basis about data unification. Nobody wants to talk about data unification, but most marketers want to talk about the single view of the customer. And that's what we're talking about here. And I'm sure some of you in the room have in some semblance probably connected a couple of different systems together, several different systems together with Zapier or MuleSoft or something else, or been to Dreamforce and forged relationships with 5 different companies that all played nicely with Salesforce. The remit is larger than that, is my point. And I thank you for your time. Are there any questions? I'm standing between you and cocktails, so I'm happy to answer those questions over cocktails as well. Question for you guys. Hands up. Anybody using a CDP right now? That's right.
So we have been using, is this thing working? Can you hear me? Oh, okay. We have just started using, we have this ticketing software for all of our customers that come to our museum called Galaxy. And Galaxy, I guess, is owned by Gateway, I think. And so Gateway has created this back-end software that's a CRM that is through Microsoft Dynamics and can talk to our ticketing software, whereas before, anytime something went into our CRM, we had people manually enter that information into our ticketing software.
Right.
So now, because it's through Microsoft Dynamics, if something updates with our ticketing system, it automatically updates CRM and vice versa, and that can also plug into our email through Outlook, because it's all through Microsoft Dynamics. So I think that anything you put on our website, if you want to sign up for our newsletter, that goes into our CRM, which is connected if they eventually purchase or come to Patriots Point, then they'll go into our ticketing software.
Sure.
So that sounds maybe, yeah?
It certainly could be. And I would just say, if you're not sure, if you're not sure, I mean, if you think, test it sometime, you know?
Yeah.
Use the company credit card and buy a ticket yourself. and then fill out the form on the website, and then go digging and see where all you pop up, right?
Yeah.
I think that's just important. And to be fair, CDP is a fairly young term. Customer data platform, the way the market has just ballooned this year, it really, I would say, matured. We were talking about data lakes 18 months ago, talking about building a data lake where you could plug all these systems into the same place and have the data commingle, use unique identifiers and IP addresses and Facebook IDs and everything else to find out who these people are singularly. But CDPs are kind of a new thing. There is a Customer Data Platform Institute that you can, for free, subscribe and get a daily email from them, and they'll let you know all the companies purportedly out there in the game of data unification, what they're doing today. But it really matured, I would say, with high velocity over the last year, mainly because of GDPR. Mainly because of that one button, somebody calls you or fills out a form on your website and says, please delete everything you have about me. That was the biggest challenge that CDP technology could solve. My point is that once you have that singular view, you can learn so much about your customers, and you can start to actually get into personalization to your wildest dreams. Yes, ma'am. She went to Clemson, you can tell.
Can you explain the difference between a CDP and a DMP?
Sure.
Because like a DMP allows you to take your first-party data and layer on third-party, right? That's kind of my basic understanding. So how does a CDP differ from that?
So not all DMPs allow you to layer your first-party data with third-party data.
Yeah.
But all DMPs are focused on third-party data.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's the big opportunity. Customer data platforms, the true CDP was built to deal with only primary data, and those that have matured or have, I would say, matriculated into something that's much more contemporary, have taken on some of DMP's qualities, some of what were DMP qualities, to be able to leverage third-party data as well. Now, you'll remember my diagram that I had up there. I had digital asset management over outside of the CDP. My belief is you don't want to have third-party data and first-party data swimming in the same system because of the problems that are happening with phishing and bots. There's a lot of people who will fill out forms to get your newsletters, your recipe lists, and whatever else that aren't real people. Even when you ask them to click a thing that says they're not a robot, they're still a robot.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. Let's go have a cocktail. Thank you very much.
Thank you.